The sun beat down relentlessly on the construction site, the dust clinging to Daniel's sweat-soaked shirt. His body ached, a constant thrum of fatigue against bone and muscle. But as he hoisted another heavy block, a different kind of strength pulsed through him. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about building. Not just the skeletal framework of structures, but a future, solid and unyielding, for Gina and Sophie. He thought of their small, trusting faces and the raw determination that had hardened inside him since Lena had walked out. Months bled into a grueling year. Daniel was a ghost of his former self, leaner, darker, his hands permanently scarred, yet his eyes held a steel resolve that wasn't there before. He still worked at the construction site by day, but his nights were different. After the girls were asleep, under the pale glow of a rechargeable lamp, he devoured old engineering textbooks he'd found at a charity drive. He studied blueprints, sketched designs, and even learned basic coding from free online courses, using a dilapidated public library computer. He wasn't just building structures, he was rebuilding himself, brick by painstaking brick. He nurtured a quiet, burgeoning connection with old Mr. Silas, a retired architect who lived 2 streets away and occasionally bought discarded materials from Daniel's site. Silas, with his keen, aged eyes, saw something in Daniel, a spark of intelligence and relentless drive beneath the grime. He recognized a kindred spirit, a mind hungry for knowledge and a spirit that refused to break.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
The fall, 1 year earlier. The alarm screamed at 5 a.m., a piercing wail that clawed through the pre-dawn stillness of their cramped Eldridge apartment. Daniel rose slowly, his body heavy, as if the weight of his failures had settled into his bones overnight. His shadow loomed against the cracked, peeling wallpaper, a silent witness to his unraveling life. Lena, his wife, stirred, her size sharp enough to cut glass. "You're not even going to work today," she hissed, her voice dripping with contempt that burned deeper than the morning's chill. Daniel stayed silent, his throat tight. What could he say? 3 days ago, after 15 years at Crestmont's premier architectural firm, he'd been summoned to a sterile office and handed a letter. Downsizing. Restructuring. Cost-cutting. Thank you for your service. A handshake, a hollow nod, and at 43 he was cast out, jobless, with rent looming, 2 daughters to feed, and a wife whose love had withered into dust. He turned to her, forcing a quiet, "Good morning," his voice a fragile thread of hope. Lena didn't respond. Her eyes, once warm, now glinted with disdain as she slid out of bed, yanking her scarf tight like a noose around her heart. She stormed out, her footsteps a deliberate rebuke. Moments later, Sophie, their 5-year-old, burst in, clutching her frayed teddy bear, its button eye dangling by a thread. "Daddy, are you staying home today?" Her voice was a spark of light in the suffocating gloom. Daniel's heart splintered as he lifted her onto his lap, her small warmth a fleeting shield against despair. "Yeah, princess. Daddy's with you today." Her yay and tight hug were the only warmth he felt, a fleeting pulse of joy in a morning draped in dread. By noon, Lena's voice sliced through the kitchen, sharp and deliberate, as she spoke to her sister on the phone. "I'm not staying here to rot with a man who can't provide." Each word was a nail driven into Daniel's chest, her voice loud enough to ensure he heard. He stood in the doorway, invisible, his hands trembling as her words carved him into something less than human. That night, the apartment was a tomb, silent, frigid, suffocating. Lena served herself dinner, her movements precise, ignoring Daniel and the girls. Gina stared at her untouched plate, her fork still. Sophie's eyes darted between her parents, her small face creased with confusion. Daniel swallowed the pain, his throat raw, and said nothing, but inside he was screaming. The abandonment. Morning broke, gray and heavy, the air thick with unspoken betrayal. Lena stood by the door, 2 bags packed, her face a fortress of cold resolve. Gina sat frozen on the sagging couch, clutching a book she hadn't opened, her knuckles white. Sophie clung to her teddy bear, its loose eye threatening to fall. "Where are you going?" Daniel asked, stepping into the living room, his voice steady but fraying at the edges. His heart pounded, each beat a plea for her to stay. Lena's eyes were steel, unyielding. "Somewhere I'll be valued," she said, her voice a blade. "Not this dead-end life where dreams choke and die. You're leaving your daughters behind." His words trembled, a mix of disbelief and desperation. "They'll be fine with you," Lena snapped. "Gina's old enough to handle Sophie. They're girls. They'll survive." Sophie stumbled forward, her small voice breaking. "Mommy, I want to go with you." Her plea hung in the air, fragile and raw. Lena didn't look back. "You'll thank me later," she said, her tone as cold as the door she slammed behind her. The sound echoed like a gunshot, shattering the fragile remnants of their family. Daniel sank to his knees, pulling Gina and Sophie into his arms. Their small bodies trembled against him, Sophie's sobs soaking his shirt, Gina's silence louder than any cry. Kissed the tops of their heads and whispered. "Daddy's going to be okay," he whispered, his voice cracking under the weight of the lie. "You'll see." But as he held them, the silence of the apartment swallowed them whole, and doubt clawed at his soul, whispering, "What if you fail them too?" But even he wasn't sure if that was true. That night, Daniel sat outside the small rented apartment. His thoughts were heavy. His hands trembled as he scrolled through his phone, only to see a post on Lena's Instagram painting a different world. She'd fled to Seychelles with Victor, a slick businessman with a penthouse. Her posts dripped with excess, champagne on a yacht, diamond earrings glinting in candlelight. "This is living. Left the past behind." Her followers cheered. "You're thriving, girl. You made the right choice. Proud of you, sis." No one mentioned the daughters she'd abandoned. He turned off his phone. It was just him now. Him and two little girls who refused to let go. Daniel sat in the living room, the early morning sun leaking through the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor. Gina was still sitting where she had been when her mother walked out, quiet, still staring at the space by the door. Sophie had fallen asleep on his lap after crying herself into silence. Her little chest rose and fell gently. Daniel hadn't moved in hours. He couldn't. He just sat there blinking slowly, arms wrapped protectively around his daughters. No part of him believed this would happen. Not like this. Not after everything. He replayed it over and over again. Lena's voice sharp like a blade. "I'm going somewhere I'll be respected, not staying here to rot with a man who can't provide." She had looked him in the eye and still left the girls behind like forgotten shoes. Even when Sophie begged to go with her, she didn't flinch. And now the silence in the house was louder than any shout. He had no money, no job, no clue what tomorrow would bring. But he had Gina and Sophie, and he was going to protect them with everything he had left. Days bled into weeks. Daniel scoured the city for work, but doors slammed shut. Economy's tough, man. He tried calling old contacts for work. Nothing. Most didn't pick up. One told him to chill in there. He took what he could get, menial jobs, cleaning gutters, washing cars, scrubbing floors, hauling crates at a warehouse. Eventually, he found a construction site nearby that needed laborers. What it paid wasn't much, but it was something. His hands, once steady on blueprints, grew rough and scarred. He walked Gina and Sophie to school each morning, their lunches packed with the last of the rice. The first few weeks were a blur of exhaustion and despair. He was barely functioning, his days a monotonous cycle of physical labor, punctuated by brief, bittersweet moments with his daughters. He felt like a failure, a crumbling foundation unable to support the weight of their future. He'd almost given in, almost succumbed to the darkness Lena had left behind. Weeks bled into a grueling months, each day a testament to his stubborn refusal to break. Daniel was a shadow of his former self, the soft edges of his pampered executive life worn away by the harsh realities of manual labor. He was leaner, his skin tanned to leather, his hands permanently scarred, marked by the rough embrace of concrete and steel. His shirt would be soaked through. Cement powder clung to his skin. His hands, once smooth from years of desk work, now bore calluses and cracks. Sweat mixing with dust on his skin. He ate nothing until night, saving every scrap for the girls. But he didn't complain. But his eyes, once clouded with complacency and insecurity, now blazed with a fierce, almost intimidating resolve. He still toiled at the construction site by day, his body a machine driven by sheer willpower. But his nights were different, sacred, his own. After Gina and Sophie were asleep, tucked into their small beds with their worn teddy bears, the small apartment transformed. Under the pale, flickering glow of a rechargeable lamp, powered by a car battery he'd salvaged, he became a student again. He devoured discarded engineering textbooks he'd found at a charity drive, their pages brittle with age, but filled with the promise of knowledge. He studied blueprints, meticulously tracing lines and angles, his brow furrowed in concentration. He even learned basic coding from free online courses, using a dilapidated computer at the public library, its keyboard sticky and unresponsive. He wasn't just building structures, he was rebuilding himself, brick by painstaking brick, software line by laborious line. He was shedding the skin of the man Lena had scorned and forging a new identity, one defined by resilience and purpose. Meanwhile, across the vast Atlantic, Lena's life with Victor on the Azure coast was a dazzling, sun-drenched mirage. Her social media feed was a kaleidoscope of infinity pools, designer labels, and gourmet meals. Hashtag blessed, hashtag soft life, hashtag new beginnings. The comment section was a chorus of envy. Victor, the man she ran to, was wealthy, polished, and generous. He showered her with gifts and trips. Lena was living the life she had always dreamed of. Within weeks, they were in Seychelles, sipping cocktails by a beach resort. Her skin glowed, her nails were always done, and her laughter rang loud in Instagram stories. She posted everything. Matching outfits with Victor on a yacht. Dinner at a floating restaurant in Seychelles, a luxury hotel room with rose petals on the bed. Captions like, "This is what peace looks like." New life. Her followers gushed. Hot girl in her era. God, when your ex must be dying inside. But Daniel wasn't dying. He was surviving. He was bathing his daughters in the evening, washing their school uniforms by hand, teaching Gina maths at night. Some nights Sophie would fall asleep on his chest while he quietly hummed lullabies to stop her from asking questions he couldn't answer. He didn't own a generator anymore. Had to sell it to pay for medical tests when Sophie caught a fever. They used candles and rechargeable lamps. He turned off the fridge to save electricity. He walked instead of taking bike Okada. Yet every time he looked at his daughters, he knew one thing. They were worth it. And somewhere across the ocean, Lena had no idea that the life she had built was balancing on lies. Because Victor, the perfect man, had secrets, big ones. Secrets that would bring her dream crashing down like a house of cards. And when that day came, she would wish she had stayed. Daniel woke up before the sun, his body aching like it had been beaten. He had no alarm anymore. Hunger had taken its place. He quietly got out of bed so he wouldn't wake Gina and Sophie, then stepped outside. The cool morning air hit his skin as he squatted by a bowl of water to bathe from. They hadn't had running water for days. The girls didn't complain. They had grown used to silence. By 7 a.m., he had dropped them off at school and was walking toward the construction site. His shirt clung to his back, the same brown trousers he wore yesterday, already stiff with cement dust. He didn't care. He was surviving. At the site, the foreman shouted orders, and Daniel joined the line of men, lifting heavy blocks from the delivery truck. Each block pulled at his back like it wanted to snap his spine in half. His palms had started to tear open. The blisters popped with every grip. By noon, sweat ran down his face like tears. His legs shook under him, but he didn't stop. Some of the other workers laughed behind his back. "Now big man way full be this so." One whispered, "See as suffer humble lamb," another added. He heard them. He always did, but he said nothing. Daniel was known in the area. Once the man who drove a car, wore ironed shirts, and paid his children's school fees up front. Now he carried blocks and begged the neighbor to buy him food on credit. One sweltering afternoon, as he was mixing cement in the corner, he heard someone call his name. "Daniel?" He turned. A familiar face appeared at the warehouse. It was Marcus, an old colleague, his polished shoes out of place in the dusty yard. "Is that you?" Daniel wiped his brow, forcing a grin. "Still me." Marcus's pity was palpable, his phone subtly capturing the moment. A broken man in a broken world. That evening, he returned home to find Gina struggling to light the charcoal stove outside. Sophie was coughing inside, wrapped in a wrapper, and lying on the floor. The heat from the day hadn't gone down, but her body felt cold. He touched her forehead. She was burning up. He took a deep breath and grabbed his wallet. Only 500 left. He had to choose food or buying her drugs. He chose the drug. Gina didn't complain when he gave her and Sophie plain pap for dinner. "Daddy, are you not eating?" she asked. Daniel smiled. "I ate at work." He lied. He hadn't eaten all day. Later that night, as the girls slept, Daniel stepped outside and sat on the cement blocks near the door. He stared into the dark, head bowed. He wanted to scream, punch something, ask God why. Instead, he cried. Not loudly, just quiet tears that fell onto his dusty hands. Was he a failure? Why did she leave him when he needed her most? He wiped his face and stood to go inside. And that's when Gina came out, holding a folded piece of paper. "I made this in school," she said, handing it to him. It was a drawing, a house drawn with shaky lines and crayon-colored dreams. Stick figures stood proudly in front, Gina, Sophie, and Daniel. Above them, in Gina's childlike scrawl, it read, "Daddy will build us a good home." Daniel stared at the paper. Something broke in him. And something was rebuilt in the same moment. He picked her up and held her tightly. "Thank you," he whispered.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
"Thank you for not leaving." She nodded against his chest. Inside the room, Sophie turned in her sleep, murmuring, "Daddy." Daniel smiled through the tears. He was bruised, broken, barely breathing, but somehow he was still standing. And soon, the world would remember his name again. That was the turning point. A week later, Sophie coughed up blood. Panic seized him. At the clinic, the doctor shook his head. His words were grim. "Infection. She needs rest, clean water, medicine. Do you have support?" Daniel's wallet held $600 cash. He bought drugs, skipping dinner again. Overwhelmed and didn't know what to do that night, Daniele swallowed shame and dialed a number he had sworn never to call again. He called, she answered. "Hello," she said, confused. "Lena's friend, Amara." "I need a favor," he said calmly. "Please, just give me her address. I'm not coming to cause drama. I just want to talk for the children." There was a long pause. "You sure this is a good idea?" "I'm not sure of anything anymore," he replied. "But my girls deserve a mother. That's all I'm asking for." "I need to see Lena," he said. "For the children. Just talk." Amara hesitated, then sent him an address in Ocean View Towers, Portsville. The confrontation. The message came in seconds later. Block E, Flat 4D, Portsville Estate. The next morning, Daniel wore his cleanest shirt. He washed his face twice, combed his hair, and sprayed a little perfume he had left from a birthday gift some years ago. Then he borrowed a $1,000 for transport. He wanted to go with peace. Portsville Estate was quiet, clean, rich, too clean. The security man looked at him suspiciously, but after mentioning Lena's name, he was let in. Block E, Flat 4D. Daniel stood before the door, hand trembling slightly as he knocked. He held the "We Miss You, Mummy" card, designed by Sophie, tightly like it was the last piece of dignity he had. The door opened, and there she was, Lena. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her silk robe shimmered in the light. She held a wine glass in her hand and looked like someone who had never known the weight of poverty. She blinked in shock. "Daniel." He cleared his throat. "Hi, Lena." "Daniel? What are you doing here?" she asked coldly. "How did you find me?" "I just want 5 minutes," he said, voice low. "It's about Gina and Sophie. They need their mother." But Victor stepped in, smirking. "You're embarrassing yourself." Lena closed the door in his face. He didn't flinch. He just walked into the sun, "We Miss You, Mummy" card in hand, and whispered. Then he whispered to himself, "She's gone." He took one long breath and said quietly, "This is not my end, it's just us, and we're going to win no matter what." The sun was unforgiving that afternoon. Daniel's shirt clung to his back, soaked in sweat and dust from the construction site. He carried a nylon bag of tomatoes and onions. Dinner for the girls. His steps were slow, heavy, and tired. As he crossed the junction near their street, a black SUV rolled up beside him. The windows were tinted. The engine hummed like a beast. Then the passenger window rolled down slowly. A familiar voice scoffed. "Is that Daniel?" He turned. It was Lena. She sat in the front seat, sunglasses on, music playing softly in the background. Her nails sparkled. Her skin glowed. Her lips curled into a wicked smile. "Well, well," she said, stepping out. "See who's walking under the sun like a market boy." Daniel stood still, holding his bag tightly. Lena circled him slowly, like she was inspecting a broken statue. "This is your life now?" she asked, laughing. "So, you weren't even pretending when you begged me at the estate." Still, Daniel said nothing. She leaned in, her voice low but sharp. "Look at you. No car, no job, no love, no respect. I thank God I left when I did. I'd be on this street now, frying Accra." She stepped back and looked him up and down one more time. "You're not a man. You're a memory. A bad one. A failure." Daniel turned away quietly. As he walked, her voice followed him like a whip. "Loser. You're not a man. You're a loser." He didn't look back. Not once. 2 days later, the scene was completely different. Lena was in an airport lounge sipping champagne, snapping pictures with Victor beside her. He wore designer sunglasses and held her waist like a prize. Her social media lit up. Seychelles loading. "My man said, pack your bags. We're leaving this stress behind." She posted a reel her in a blue bikini by the beach sipping coconut juice and laughing. Another showed her in a 5-star restaurant with a view of the ocean. Soft life only. "If I had stayed with him, I'd still be boiling water with firewood." The comments rolled in. "You're glowing, sis. Your ex must be punching the air. This is what winning looks like." But no one mentioned the 2 little girls she left behind. No one asked if she ever looked back. At home, Daniel sat in the dim corner of the room watching Sophie sleep restlessly on the bed beside him. The night was warm, the air sticky with heat and silence. Gina was reading by the rechargeable lamp. Her back slightly hunched, her eyes tired. The fever had subsided, but the infection could return. And this time, they had no more medicine. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. Not enough for even the cheapest antibiotics. His gaze landed on the piece of paper taped to the wall above Sophie's bed. Gina's drawing. A house drawn with shaky lines and crayon-colored dreams. Stick figures stood proudly in front. Gina, Sophie, and Daniel. Above them, in Gina's childlike scrawl, it read, "Daddy will build us a good home." Daniel held the drawing to his chest. His eyes welled, but he didn't let the tears fall. "I'm not a loser," he whispered. "I'm a father, and I'm not done." Instantly something stirred inside him. He became a student again and started bringing his charcoal sketches with his drawing plans. The rebirth of a builder. Soon, Daniel started bringing his charcoal sketches and painstakingly drawn plans to Silas's cluttered living room. The old architect, his spectacles perched on his nose, would pore over them, offering precise, constructive criticism. "This joint needs more tensile strength, Daniel. Or consider the flow of natural light here, son. It can save on energy costs." Silas didn't just teach theory. He shared secrets gleaned from decades of practical experience, the nuances of materials, the psychology of space, and the delicate balance between aesthetics and functionality. Daniel absorbed every word, every lesson, like fertile ground soaking up rare rain. The promise lives on. Even as Sophie recovered slowly at home, and Gina's laughter returned in short bursts, Daniel worked. Not just with his hands, but with hope. Every night, after laboring on construction sites, he sketched. And every morning, he revised. That drawing Gina made still hung by Sophie's bed, now creased and smudged, but more alive than ever. "Daddy will build us a good home." He wasn't just dreaming anymore. He was preparing to make it real. The sun baked the construction site as Daniel moved with silent precision, sweat trickling down his back. But he wasn't just another laborer anymore, not in mind, not in purpose. Each day, he applied what he had learned through observation, instinct, and grit. He didn't make noise about it. Instead, he made quiet suggestions, shifting a support beam slightly to improve balance, proposing a quicker way to pour concrete that saved time and cost without risking structure. At first, Foreman Merrick, a no-nonsense man with eyes like steel and hands like stone, watched Daniel from the corner of his eye, skeptical. But soon, the results spoke louder than any words. Daniel wasn't just lifting blocks, he was building smarter. He wasn't just following instructions, he was guiding outcomes. Then Merrick started assigning him more. One crew, then two. Before long, Daniel was managing entire sections of the project. His days grew longer, but so did his influence. One Monday morning, Daniel was called into Marek's office. He thought it was for a routine site update. With his sketchbook in hand and a pen tucked neatly in his pocket, he entered. Marek looked up, smiling faintly, the kind of smile a man makes when something serious is about to be said. "Daniel, sit down," he said, gesturing toward the chair. Daniel obeyed, heart thudding. Then Marek leaned forward. "You've carried this project like your own," he said. "You brought order where there was confusion. You've shown me what it means to be dedicated and honest. That's why I'm promoting you." Daniel blinked. "Thank you, sir." "Not just that," Marek interrupted. "I'm handing the entire construction over to you. You're the new site head. It's yours now." The weight of it hit like a wave. Not just the money, though that was substantial. It was the recognition, the reward for every tired morning and every silent night of worry. It was proof that hard work and integrity hadn't been wasted. That evening, Daniel returned home with 2 meat pies and a cold bottle of malt. Gina ran to the door, her small feet padding across the dusty floor. "Daddy!" He handed the treats to Gina and Sophie, who stared at him wide-eyed. "What happened?" Sophie asked, already smiling. "I've been promoted," he said simply, a softness in his voice. Sophie clapped her hands like a child again. "Yay!" They sat on the floor mat, eating slowly, savoring every bite like it was made of gold. Laughter returned to the house, curling into the corners like light after a long storm. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Lena was lounging on a yacht in Seychelles with Victor. A waiter poured champagne as she dipped her feet in a pool of rose petals and posed for the camera. "If I'd stayed with him, I'd still be boiling water with firewood," she captioned the post. "Seychelles with my man." Soft life activated. Her followers flooded the photo with likes and envy. But behind the image, something was unraveling. Victor had been vanishing for hours, taking secret calls, whispering. Her gut twisted, but she silenced it for now. Back in Crestwood, Daniel sat outside under the stars, his shirt unbuttoned at the top, the air cool against his skin. Gina tiptoed out and sat beside him, quiet. "You're starting to smile again," she whispered. He looked at her, a small grin tugging at his lips. "It's the beginning of something big," he said. "I don't know what yet, but I feel it." And in that moment, something shifted deep in him, a resolve. A promise, never to go back. Never again. By the 6th week, his dedication bore even more fruit. He bought new shoes for his girls, repaired the leaking roof, donated to Mama Jadika, the widow who once fed them when he had nothing. And through it all, he remained grounded. But what he didn't know was that something even bigger and more rewarding was already in motion. A new chapter of reward, recognition, and destiny was about to begin. The challenge. Silas challenged him, pushed him beyond his self-imposed limitations, and helped him see the world through a different lens. He saw Daniel not as a construction worker struggling to make ends meet, but as a gifted individual with the potential to create something beautiful, something lasting. Under Silas's tutelage, Daniel's skills blossomed. He learned about sustainable design, about the interplay of light and shadow, about the importance of creating spaces that fostered community and connection. He began to dream bigger, to imagine a future where he could not only provide for his daughters, but also contribute something meaningful to the world. But even with Silas's support and his own burgeoning talent, Daniel still faced an uphill battle. He was still a single father working a grueling job, with limited time and resources. He knew that to truly pursue his dream, he needed to take a leap of faith, to risk everything he had built. The opportunity came in the form of a local competition for a new community center design. The prize was significant: funding for the project, recognition, and the chance to bring his vision to life. It was a long shot, a daunting undertaking, but Daniel knew he had to try. He poured every spare moment into his design, fueled by his passion, his determination, and the unwavering belief of his daughters and his mentor. He drew inspiration from the community, from its people, its history, and its aspirations. He envisioned a space that was both functional and beautiful, a place where people could come together to learn, to connect, and to celebrate. The competition was fierce, the designs submitted by established architects and seasoned professionals. Daniel felt the weight of his inexperience, the fear that he would be dismissed, that his efforts would be futile. But he reminded himself of everything he had overcome, of the resilience he had forged in the fires of adversity. He had come too far to give up now. Finally, the day of the announcement arrived. Daniel stood nervously in the back of the auditorium, Gina and Sophie holding tightly to his hands. He watched as the judges announced the finalists, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't expect to win, but he allowed himself to dream. Then the lead judge stepped forward, a smile on her face. And the winner of the Community Center Design Competition is Daniel Vance. A wave of disbelief washed over him. He looked at Gina and Sophie, their faces beaming with pride. He looked at Silas, who winked at him from the front row. He had done it. He had defied the odds, overcome the obstacles, and achieved the impossible. As he walked to the stage, accepting the award, he knew that this was just the beginning. He had a long road ahead of him, filled with challenges and uncertainties. But he also knew that he was capable of anything he set his mind to. He had rebuilt himself from the ashes, brick by painstaking brick, and he was ready to build a future, not just for himself and his daughters, but for the entire community.
Hello guys, haven't subscribed yet? Please subscribe now, hit the like button, and leave a comment to help.
Upstairs in a luxury flat paid for by another man, Lena was no longer smiling. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She didn't dial. She just stared at the screen, wondering if she had made the greatest mistake of her life. Lena stood in front of the mirror, frowning. Victor had barely said a word to her in 3 days. He now slept in the guest room, claimed to be busy at work, and left his second phone face down whenever she was near. His tone had changed, too. Short, defensive, and increasingly cold. "Why are you always in my space?" He snapped that morning when she asked if everything was okay. "You think this house is yours?" That was the third time he had snapped that week. She stared at the breakfast she had made for him, untouched. Later that afternoon, she found a receipt tucked inside one of his jacket pockets while doing laundry. It read Princess, one-night suite, paid $92,000, dated just 2 days ago. Lena's stomach tightened. He had told her he was on a business trip in Dunny. She said nothing, but the silence inside her was screaming. What she didn't know was that Victor's wife had just landed in Portsville. After 6 months abroad with the kids, she came back to a shocking update from the estate security guard. "Madam, another woman has been living in your house since you traveled." The woman didn't scream. She didn't panic. She picked up her phone, called 2 of her closest friends, and made a plan. The next day, Lena was lounging in the living room, wearing Victor's robe, painting her nails when the front door flung open. 3 women stormed in. "Where is she?" One of them shouted. Lena barely had time to stand up before the first slap landed. "Are you mad? You entered my house and started living like Queen Mother." Lena's wig was pulled off her head. Another broomstick struck her back. Slippers rained down on her. She screamed. Victor came running out of the bathroom in a towel, confused. His wife turned to him and threw his phone against the wall. "You brought shame to this house today. Both of you are leaving with the same disgrace." Neighbors gathered outside. Phones were out. Videos were recording. Lena, now barefoot, was dragged by her arm and thrown out of the gate. Her designer bag was tossed after her. Victor was next. His clothes were flung from the upstairs balcony, scattering across the lawn. "Come and carry your man," the wife shouted to Lena. "But not in my house." The gate slammed shut, the lock clicked, and the crowd roared. The scene went viral. Viral videos captured her downfall. Side chick sent packing. Lena was homeless, disgraced, with nowhere to go. Everyone she once flaunted had turned their backs. Lena called the only person she could think of Amara. By the time she arrived at Amara's house, her face was swollen, her voice, and her pride buried in the dust. Amara opened the door slowly, shocked. "What happened to you?" Lena fell onto the couch. "Please let me stay here just for a few days." Amara didn't ask many questions. She simply sighed and pointed toward the guest room. No noise, no drama, just rest. Lena nodded weakly, but inside her heart, regret was clawing its way out. Daniel builds, redemption in brick and sweat. The early months of Daniel's new venture, Daniel Builds, were brutal. Income was unstable, barely enough to keep the lights on. He worked 18-hour days, pitching, planning, building with his own hands alongside a few loyal ex-colleagues. He squeezed in a part-time course on sustainable construction, his body drained but his mind lit with purpose. The girls, Gina and Sophie, understood in the way only love can teach. They taped drawings of Papa's buildings on the fridge. Stick figures beside tall, colorful structures. Crayon suns above smiling faces. Every time Daniel felt his knees buckle from exhaustion, he looked at those sketches. They kept him going. Then came a turning point. The breakthrough. A tender for a medium-scale affordable housing project by a non-profit hit the market. Daniel, now wiser and battle-tested, partnered with Silas, his old mentor, to craft a bid. His design wasn't just functional. It was beautiful. Simple, affordable, green, community-focused. When the award letter came, he read it twice. He had won. The project was completed on time, under budget, and with such finesse that it made headlines in city planning circles. Daniel Builds was no longer a struggling startup. It was a rising star. The company celebration. 3 months later, the nonprofit and city council organized a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The press came. The mayor came. Children ran across the new community playground, laughing free. Daniel stood near the main entrance of the housing complex, dressed in a clean white shirt, his hard hat polished. A bold banner read, "Building Hope with Daniel Builds." A councilwoman took the mic and said, "In a world full of contractors cutting corners, Daniel Builds is cutting paths, to dignity, to community, to home." The applause was thunderous. Daniel's name was etched into the cornerstone of the central community hub. But while others celebrated, Daniel felt something colder under the surface. His rising success had drawn eyes, not all friendly. That same evening, he returned to his office to find an anonymous letter slipped under the door. "Not everyone wants you at the top. Watch your back." The night everything changed. The door flung open with a bang. "Lena! Lena!" Amara's voice rang through the apartment like an alarm. Lena looked up from the couch, startled. "What is it? Why are you shouting like that?" Amara rushed in, eyes wide, phone in hand, practically vibrating with excitement. "You won't believe what I just read. It's everywhere. Twitter, blogs, even on TV." Lena rolled her eyes and sank deeper into the couch. "If it's another scandal about one of your exes, please spare me." Amara stopped in front of her, breathless. "No, it's not my ex. It's yours." Lena's smile faltered. "What? Daniel?" Amara's voice dropped, almost reverent. "He's all over the news." Lena snorted, waving her hand dismissively. "Let me guess. He's trending for hawking fruits in a fancy apron." But Amara didn't laugh. "No, Lena. He owns Daniel Builds. That housing project that won the government contract. He's the one behind it." Lena blinked. "What are you talking about?" "He won the bid. The city's biggest affordable housing project in years. The mayor himself handed him the award this afternoon. There's a press video, he gave a whole speech. He looked sharp, polished, spoke with so much class. I swear I didn't even recognize him at first." Lena's lips curled into a forced smile. "Please. It's probably the construction company he works for. Maybe he's one of the workers who pushed a wheelbarrow or painted the fence." Amara tilted her head. "That's what I thought. But I watched the full clip. He's the CEO, Lena. He designed the blueprint. They even called him a visionary." Lena waved her off again, but her fingers trembled slightly. Alone with the truth. That night, the apartment was unusually quiet. Lena sat alone in her room, phone screen casting a pale light on her face. She tapped the link Amara had sent. Her breath caught. There he was. Daniel. Standing beside the mayor, clean-cut in a dark blue suit. No trace of the dusty, broke man she had once known. Cameras flashed. His smile was confident, alive. He shook hands with dignitaries, nodded graciously at the applause. She watched the video. He spoke with calm authority about sustainability, community, second chances. Her heart clenched. We don't just build houses. We build dignity, we build hope. And sometimes we build ourselves again. The room blurred. Lena blinked fast, but the tears came anyway. She stared at his face, still familiar, yet transformed. Not broken. Not desperate. Rebuilt. Renewed. Respected. No, she whispered to herself, voice barely audible in the dark. No, it can't be. But it was. The man she once walked away from had become everything she thought he never could be. New heights at home. Weeks passed. Daniel bought a 5-bedroom mansion in Riverton Estate. It had chandeliers, marble floors, a kitchen big enough for dreams. Gina darted through the house screaming, "Daddy, the chandelier has stars inside it." Sophie giggled, bouncing on a plush couch. The fridge was full. The AC hummed softly in every room. Over dinner, as they all ate at the dining table for the first time, Sophie looked up with eyes wide and asked, "Daddy, are we rich now?" Daniel smiled slowly, his voice warm. "We're blessed, sweetheart. And we're never going back." Lena's decline. Across the city, in Amara's modest apartment, tension thickened. Lena had arrived 3 weeks earlier, broken and humiliated. At first, she cried in silence. But as days passed, she became someone else, entitled, dismissive, careless. She woke at noon, left plates unwashed, drained Amara's food without asking. She took long, whispery phone calls in the hallway and left the bathroom lights on. Amara said nothing, but her silence grew louder by the day. The final straw came one evening. Amara returned from work to find Lena cooking jollof rice, with her last tin of tomatoes. No call. No question. Amara didn't confront her. But that night, on the phone with her cousin, she let the words slip. "I pity her, but she's draining me. She has to go." Lena, standing in the hallway, overheard it all. Her heart sank like lead. She returned to the guest room, her pride curled around her like a cold blanket. She didn't cry this time. She simply stared at the wall, knowing the end had come. 3 days later, Amara called her into the living room. Her voice was steady but kind. "Lena, I've been patient, but I think it's time you go." "Please," Lena whispered. "I don't have anywhere to go. I'm sorry, but you need to figure that out. I can't carry you anymore. You have 3 days." Lena nodded. No fight left. She packed her things in silence. Back to the rooftop. That night, Daniel stood on the rooftop of his newest completed project, a gleaming, energy-efficient community center. The city lights blinked in the distance like promises. His hands, scarred and calloused, rested on the railing. He closed his eyes and prayed. Thank you, God, for this second chance. His journey hadn't been luck. It had been brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. Redemption didn't arrive in a flash. It came slowly, as every hard decision added up to something unshakable. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, hollow and desperate. Her pride was in tatters, her options shrinking fast. In the quiet ache of humiliation, her thoughts turned inevitably to Daniel. The man she had once mocked for dreaming too small. The one she'd left behind without a second glance. Now she needed help. A lifeline. With trembling hands, she searched old contacts, old emails. Nothing. He had vanished. Changed his number. His email bounced back. It was like he had deliberately erased himself from her world. Then, one gray morning, as she mindlessly scrolled through the news, a headline caught her eye. Oak Haven Renewal Project, a bold new vision for the city. She skimmed it until a name stopped her cold. Daniel Vance. Lead architect. Principal partner. Her heart slammed against her ribs. There he was, in a crisp suit beside the mayor, smiling with quiet confidence as they unveiled a blueprint that would reshape an entire city. She stared at the image, numb. Daniel, the man she left in the dust of Crestwood, was no longer struggling. He was soaring, and from the ruins of her own choices, all she could do now was watch. The return. She found herself at Daniel's old compound, only to learn he'd moved. After begging a neighbor for directions, she found herself standing at the towering gates. She knocked, heart pounding. The gateman hesitated but let her in. Inside, Daniel was preparing for a celebration. His new engagement to Ngozi, a kind nurse who loved Gina and Sophie like her own. When the gate man announced Lena's arrival, he paused. He stepped outside. She saw him, strong and calm. Beside him stood Ngozi, holding Gina's hand. Sophie was smiling, more confident than ever. Lena fell to her knees, sobbing. "I've lost everything. Please forgive me." Daniel's voice was calm, unyielding. "I forgave you long ago. But I've moved on. You made your choice. I'm getting married." Lena gasped. "So, you're not alone?" "No, I'm not alone. I'm loved and I'm respected." Lena looked at the woman beside him. She was beautiful, confident, peaceful. Lena's knees buckled. She dropped to the floor. "Please, please, I'm begging." Daniel didn't move. "Stand up. You still have some dignity left. Don't lose all of it." She stood broken. Daniel continued. "I'll give you a little cash to find your footing, but that's all. You made your choice. I made mine. We're not the same people anymore." His fiancée Ngozi gently squeezed his hand by circling her hand over his neck and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Daniel handed her an envelope of cash, then let her go. Lena opened her mouth to speak again, but nothing came out. He turned back inside. She stayed, eyes wide with silent regret, as the gate closed and locked. Tears sprang to her eyes, not of regret for him, but for herself. For the colossal, irreversible mistake she had made. She had walked out on a diamond in the rough, mistaking it for worthless coal. And now, the coal had become a beacon, shining blindingly, utterly out of her reach. The irony was a bitter, stinging poison. The man she had called a failure, the one she had imagined dying inside, had not just survived, but thrived beyond her wildest imagination. And what she had become, a pariah stripped of all pride, left her weeping, not for a lost love, but for a lost future that she had so carelessly thrown away. The silence of her opulent, hollow apartment, once filled with the phantom laughter of parties and endless indulgence, now echoed with the harsh truth. The greatest betrayal she had ever committed was against herself. Some people walk through fire and survive. Others light the match and burn their way out of every miracle. Daniel didn't just survive. He became the fire.
Hello guys, I hope you enjoyed our stories. Please hit the like button, leave a comment below and subscribe to our channel.